This is Assassin's Creed Valhalla: Dawn of Ragnarok. It was released in 2022 and it's a standalone DLC following Valhalla. We will explore the work of the artists that created the environments of the game. We will study how they use modularity to create such large structures. And we will figure out how a large team of artists collaborated on this production. So let's get ready to learn directly from the devs. So here we have our board with the work of our artists, and let's start with Radi Avramov. So let's read a little bit about what are we going to see. So another great experience in creating the Rampart kit in Assassin's Creed Valhalla: Dawn of Ragnarok were the floors and the stairs, with or without railings, that later in the project turned out to be very useful in a lot of non-military locations. For the floors, he worked very close teamwork with the texture artist Nikolay Bonev, and we created 3D mesh from the normal map of the texture in ZBrush, so that's very interesting. Later decimated and optimized it to a very low poly tileable seamless model, which was later used in other kits by his colleagues. So this is a frequently used techniques that we create some highly detailed sculpts in ZBrush with the focus of turning that into a tileable texture, and then you create a low poly, decimate, then retopologize whatever you make it super low poly, and then you can have a tileable texture that is reused everywhere, right? So one characteristic of this game, of this standalone DLC, is that there are huge structures that are kind of similar looking. So then that's how the artist could use and leverage the modularity of the kits so much. So we can see the stairs and we can see the floors, and we can see some of the examples of these tileable textures which have been created with high-res versions in ZBrush and then brought down back to reasonable optimized assets, and it looks great. It looks really, really good. So you can see, of course, with big structures, the need for different heights, different length is great. So that's why you have similar pieces with different dimensions. Then you can see nice shots of on the presentation level, and then you see in the actual context of the game how it is used. And yes, this is highly versatile, the floor and stairs kit. So that's the first part. Another part is this one. So this is the tower groups modules. So one of the most complex groups in the Rampart kit is the towers. They are made of 278 entities, around 50 modules, and the rest are mesh decals and have an interior. So this is a lot. This was probably quite complex. So they have 3 varieties of dimensions: 12 by 2132, 12 by 1232, 12 by 1224. So it's nothing random. It's because of the need, okay? But you see, it's not 11.81 or whatever. It's always easy to manage numbers so that you can snap in the engine and reuse. We choose the same modules, only the support is unique. The modules that build these towers are used separately in a lot of locations as interior models. So you see the reusability is very, very high. So while doing this kit, which probably took quite a while to get it right, to get the perfect dimension and everything, there are interiors that are done also. So then those interiors were reused somewhere else. And this is how you build those big pieces. So some of you might be wondering, let me actually show the height of these structures. The one, for those of you who played the game, you know very well. But this is kind of head scratcher for texturing and regarding texel density. A lot of people who get started in 3D or studying, graduate from school, they have been used, they've been exposed to the basics, and they work hard, they create environments, assets, and then they come up with a huge structure like that, and they're like, okay, how do I how do I approach this at all? How do I preserve textile density? So many ways, but it's very simple at the end of the day. And you can see here, in this case, they are divided in smaller pieces. And sorry, if I can find, we will see from another artist large pieces, larger structure, which are like one block, right? But for those, I believe, like the basis, this is one piece, then the rest might be one piece, and then the top would be another one. Can we see it from here? Well, you see this part, the top part, the very top part is actually really just the top part here. And then you see the windows, actually they're small parts. So you see that for this window, it's one piece here, then this other window, this is another section, and you can see actually there are like the tiling of these stones the tiling is different than from this one. So it is divided, and here's the same, even if the tiling would be the same. So you have some pieces like that, some pieces like that, some pieces like that. So it is cut, if you will, right? It's cut in smaller pieces. It's easier to manage, easier to preserve the right textile density, and also you can reuse them much easier because you're not stuck with one tower. You can make it higher, lower. You can reuse it in the world much easier this way. Okay, and for those who are concerned about the draw calls when they see these things, it doesn't end up being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like each single little pieces being one draw call. It doesn't work this way. This is managed in the engine by the tech artist, by who establishes the pipeline, and those are usually building kits, right? So for building, and you see that it's using the same kind of materials also. So it doesn't end up being 1, 2, 3, 4, like it's not 100 draw calls per structure. It's very few at the end of the day. And then if you have this specific tower design, which is reused in other locations, it is the one count, right? It's an instance. So if it is visible in the same, I don't know if I have a shot here with multiple, this is an example, but if you are in the same environment and you would have the same exact piece, it doesn't count as additional draw count. It's an instance. So this is all done by the team, right? The environment artists, the level artists, the tech artists, everybody, and the programmers, of course, and everybody who works on the pipeline to establish it and to create the tools in the engine. That's why most AAA studios are using proprietary engine. And if they are using Unreal Engine, they are using their own tools. There are great tools that comes with Unreal Engine 5 that everybody has access to, but to make AAA game with, respectable performances, proprietary tools on how to manage and how to leverage and use modularity properly. This is very, very important. So we can appreciate the work, we can appreciate the interior, and the wooden structure that we see here with the very cool shot, like the exploded version of the tower. And then you see it here in context, and this is reused everywhere, pretty much everywhere. So now you see in context of the world, of the environment, here with, of course, additional elements. And here, I believe those are GIFs, actually, that shows the lighting. This is very interesting. You see it basically at night and during the day. Same for this one. So you can see with the different lighting, different moods, how it turns out. It's really, really great work. Next up, still by the same artist, the interior models. So another great experience in creating the Rampart kit were the interior models that were initially made for the towers, but later used in a lot of locations. That's kind of the name of the game. As much as you can reuse those and it works, that's the goal. After finishing with them, I had a chance to work on some interior models from the other kits. So then, of course, there's a team that he worked with, and then you can see those different parts, which everything is massive in this game, right? Because it's a fantasy world. Then you see the interior part, the crazy huge door, and the interior part of the tower. Very interesting shot, by the way. And then you can appreciate how it is reused in many different locations with added, added props, added decoration, which makes it look slightly different. Still with a consistent direction, consistent art direction, consistent style, but you can see that it's different. And here also reused are these wooden assets, which are part of the interior module. Moving on, still the work of the same artist who has been very busy, apparently. Now we have the ruins and counterforce. So that later in the project turned out to be very useful, again, for a lot of non-military locations. So I had the chance to create a broken version of the World Builder 19-meter statue and a broken arch, look at them very soon, that were later used mainly in the Capitol atrium. In this post, we'll also show another asset that I created, the 18-meter wall counterforce. For the ruined walls, I reused scaled up version of the backstones of Peter Zazdanov's residential kit ruins. So these teams work like it's a tight-knit collaboration affair, right? They have to know what the other artists are working on so that eventually they can reuse parts of it. And this is how you make it possible, right? With these huge worlds, you need to be reusing as much stuff as possible. Whenever it's possible, you do it. This is another great shot that shows exactly how this works. So you can understand that this piece comes here next to a standard non-broken wall, and boom, you have your broken up wall, and this piece is just a copy, flipped, and you have it here. And you see a supporting pillar. Is it the counterforce he was talking about? I believe it is. So those pieces which are act as support for those huge walls. And then we can see it again in the context, in the full context of the environment of the game. You can appreciate with additional set dressing done by level artists. You can appreciate how it all blends and work together. Then we have another very cool shot here. Here in another different location, which makes it feel different, yet it's the same, but it's really working extremely well. And yeah, those walls, those environments are massive. They make for very cool shot, cool framing. Awesome. Moving on to another one. We are going quite fast through tons of work, but we have a lot to cover. So another task was to create from start to finish the Rampart kit, military architecture in the dwarven world of Svartalfheim. I hope my pronunciation is okay. So he was the modeling owner of the kit. It was a complex task, as you can see, as you can imagine, consists of more than 100 modules that can assemble two kits groups, 9-meter tall and 18-meter tall. And you see those values are not random, they are established, and the whole team sticks to these values. And then you end up with two different kits for different needs. It is impossible to pose them all. In other posts, I'll show some of them in detail. Of course, even then, it's a lot, and it's super interesting. But yeah, with the number of assets, it's clearly impossible that he shows everything. I'd like to point out the final stage of the process, Martin Bonev polished some of the assets, corners and straight walls. So you have to understand, even as and maybe you might understand a bit better what it means to be the modeling owner of the kit. From start to finish, it does not necessarily mean he did 100% of everything. Yet another artist jumped in and did some polish of some of the assets. Why? Because it's a lot. Okay? And even working full-time for a few years is just not enough. So as the owner, he is in charge, he designed, he's the go-to person if something is wrong, basically. If a tech artist, if a texture artist, if some people programmers, people working on gameplay, anybody has a problem and it involves this kit, he has to answer. You have accountability. That's what it means to be the owner. Of course, it also means that you work on most of it, right? From start to finish, from conception, L0 all the way to L3, which has different names depending on the studio, the production, but it's the different phases of production, different level of polish of the assets. So he was responsible all the way through the end, but it was so much work that another artist stepped in. And that's not counting that also, of course, there were other artists involved. Texture artists were producing the textures, but he was the modeling owner, so he did most of the work. And you see, this is a lot. This is not the whole complete kit, but already it's a lot. You can understand that there are needs for different dimension and different type to accommodate the structures. You see it here with like more assembled version of these, right? Like you see them all broken up, and then you see them assembled here, and then you see those in context. So it's always interesting, always fascinating to see how they go from basically concept art initially, and then how they execute and they produce those assets. So you see, so many things are reused, but it looks good also thanks to the texture artists, but thanks to the decals, vertex blending. You can see here, we can see it, so there's some foliage and there's some moss because it's close to the water. And then of course you have the icicles, all the frozen mounticles, the snow that is also deposited, and you have lava. So it's kind of crazy, a crazy world that they explored, but it's a super interesting setting. And it was kind of a logical follow-up to Valhalla, right? They went further into the fantastic, the god, land of the gods, and all of that fun Norse mythology stuff. So that's a great DLC piece. And yeah, so you see the set dressing, part of the work of the level artists that make those structures look and feel not necessarily unique, but different. It's not just cut and paste, even if the principle is cut and paste. You have to understand that, right? The idea between modular kits is that you create a series of assets and you copy and paste them all throughout the environment. But you don't want that to be the feeling of the players that, oh, it's just another cut and paste location. If you are a 3D artist working in the field, you recognize, you are familiar with these things. And even if you are not, you can recognize the continuity, right? But you shouldn't feel like, oh, it's just the exact same thing. Like, what's important is that this is a game. It's all about gameplay. And you don't want the players to feel bored. Like, oh, another one which look exactly like that. That's not that. That's the setting. That's the environment in which combat, exploration, gathering loot, getting equipment, all that fun stuff happens. So it just needs to be dressed in a way that looks extremely familiar, but not identical. So this is great work. And there another one, I believe this is a GIF also. Yes, that shot is really, really interesting. The framing is great, and you can appreciate the environment with different lighting conditions. If you are interested in learning how to apply those techniques that we're covering while analyzing those games, I have created a class in which I show everything step by step. I show all the techniques, all the tricks. There are no time lapse, nothing is done off screen. And I take the time to explain what we do and why we do it. I show the best practices, and we are covering a small environment from A to Z. We are showing every single step of how it's done on a professional production. So if you are interested, check it out. There's the link in the description, and there's a discount available with the code provided. Next, we have Martin Bonev, who has been mentioned already by the previous artist, and let's hear it from him. So the Rampart architectural kit, we just covered it. So had the opportunity to work on the Rampart architectural kit for AC Valhalla Dawn of Ragnarok. The design and initial modeling are done by his colleague Radi Avramov. He did an amazing job, absolutely. It was a real pleasure to work with him. His job, Martin Bonev, was to polish almost half of the modules and groups, like adding decals, vertex paint, chipping the edges, and getting them a more organic feeling. So that's what we call collaboration and teamwork, right? You have an artist that's being the owner of the modeling kit, and then you have another artist coming in and adding some fine details. So decals, vertex paint, chipping the edges, making them look more organic. And it's a great success, by the way, right? Those, if you look at these sections, let me show you this one. It doesn't look like a straight piece of rock or assembled bricks that's completely brand new and clean. It's anything but that, right? We have the cracks, we have the wobbleness, like the erosion. You have, of course, the wear and tear, the bricks, the bricks or rocks or stones, whatever, being chipped. You have a very organic feeling about that. It really feels like this has been standing for centuries, if not more. Getting through storms, rain, snow, and all that weathering. And then with the vertex paint and the decals, they look, and you can, if you have the eye for it, I believe it's not the case. Let me show here. Some decals you can notice that they are kind of the same, but I mean they're using just enough so that we can't tell. Oh yeah, this is just here copy and paste, right? And there are places where it's copy and pasted, but it's hard to tell. That's when the magic occurs, right? When this is when it's good, and then you can see some vertex blend. You can see so much, and you see it is done differently. It's assembled slightly differently. You have cracks in other areas, so they can sell it very well. Like, it works perfectly. It's the same tileable material, or maybe if there are different tileable materials that are used throughout this kit, but by the blending and the use of decals, it works extremely well. That, see also the non not I won't say linearity, but it's not straight lines. It is straight lines on the sides so that it snaps together, but the silhouette that you're gonna see is not super straight, so it looks very, very good and very believable. This is how you approach, right? It's pretty straight, but still, it's like the angle. Actually, if you look at it correctly, there's like a 2-3 degrees. If it's actually more than that, 3 to 5 degree angle for this one. So with time, it moved in this direction. It's not standing super straight, and we can feel and understand that it's been there for a long time. So you have all the different pieces, and they are all treated. They all receive the same treatment, and then you can appreciate in context. So here we can see everything put together in the environment in slightly different views of the same location. So this is great work. And again, it's teamwork, collaboration. More work from the same artist, and we will see the residential kit roofs. So he had the opportunity to work on modeling the roofs and supports from scratch. Roofs are for the residential and longhouses architectural kits. He managed to push it to L1 pass before moving to other tasks. Later, they were finished by another artist. So again, we are seeing the same process. So their pipeline was clearly established this way. So he did the basic modeling pass. So from L0 to L1. L0 is block out. Just like, okay, it's in the engine. Those are the dimension. It's very basic, very simple shapes. L1 is more detailed. You might not have all the fine little tiny details, but probably you have some of these metallic parts. You don't have all those small cute details with all the trim installed in all the textures, but for L1 it depends on how the production has established the different phases, different passes. But L1 is slightly more detailed modeling, and then another artist came in and added all the smaller, finer details, and of course the texture artists made the textures, and everything was put together. And you can see, and this is geometry, right? Those slate tiles, they are geometry. It's not just a flat texture on the plane. It is adding a lot. And in Assassin's Creed, you are running on the roofs, so they are important more than in many other games, right? Then you can see from all the various angles, and those are important in long houses mainly. They are a big deal, and you actually are navigating very close, because in some areas, right, you have some other beams, and you see them from up close. So both on top when you climb the structure, and both inside when you climb the walls and you get there, right? And here you have a completely different version, different style. I mean, it's not different version, it's a different roof, right? So you have those different asset types. And here we have the interior groups. So you had the opportunity to work on the design in actual realization of the interior groups in the game. Was involved in assembling the group's work and modeling part of the modules. The dressing presented in the shots are done by the fantastic artists that worked on locations. So of course, when everything comes together, it's the work of everybody. right? But as you can see, you can tell, you can recognize the structure that were done by this artist. And then also you can see when it's empty, and then you can see when it's not so empty, when it's been set to rest, right? So it's very interesting. And then this is a bit more familiar for those who play the game. This is how it looks, right? And we're going to see it here with very, very nice lighting. And then you can see the actual kit, what it involves, right? So this is the work on this production of the artists that are working on kits. This is the kind of things you can expect. So if you are a student, you graduated from school, you're working on your portfolio, I mean, you don't need to, we don't expect, nobody expects you to work as part of a team, but you should think this way. And that's the kind of stuff you should show on your portfolio, because you might not be working on a large open world by yourself. Well, I hope you're not, because that would be, I mean, it would be debatable if that's a good idea, right? But yeah, the idea is like if you want to work on large AAA productions as an artist, well, you have to investigate, you have to learn and understand how it works. And this is how it works. So even though you're alone, you should study an environment, study an architectural style, and break it down in smaller pieces and make it work, make it functional. This is how you will get there one day, right? Next artist, we have Iana Pencheva, who worked on many, many structures, many pieces, and we have wonderful breakdowns of her work. So she worked on the industrial architectural kit, and she wants to thank the team, of course. And as you can see, there are a lot of people who were part of the team, right? I'm not going to mention anyone. Congratulations to everybody, and it's great that she gives credit to the rest of the team, because it's really a matter of working with a lot of people, right? So let's look at the complete screenshots. So those environments are really lovely. The shots are beautiful also, and we will explore how they were made. So they were made by small pieces, like all modular kits are made, and this is really great. You can really understand better how things work, and it's always going to be a case-by-case approach depending on the architecture, right? What's been established by the art director, concept artists, and then you go to work in dividing and understanding how many different pieces. And like this was specific to this roof, that they needed probably 2 meter, 1 meter, or is this 1 meter, then 2, then half a meter. It's hard to say, but I believe with the scale, I think that's at least 1 meter. This would be 2, and then that would be 4. That's my guess, because you can see, not on this screenshot, but on others, you will see a character right here, right? He's tiny. So yeah, it might even be more than that. It might be double the values that I put. But what's important is to understand the proportions, right? Like this is half of this, this is half of this, and that's how it needed to be divided so that it works, and that's how it goes. So this is a very cool kit. You see all the beams, the support for the beams. You can see everything. Then you see the assembled versions for different types of houses, of structures. It's not houses, it's the industrial kit, right? So it's industrial structures. I don't know how to call them exactly. They look like houses, but yeah, they are housing industrial manufacturing, if you will. This is great. I like the moss on the roof tiles. It's really great. And then you can see some moss also on the bottom. And this is where it would distribute logically, right? On the bottom, close to the floor, and on the wall, on the roof. Sorry. You still have some here because of the leaks of the water. can be distributed, but it's much more important on the bottom and on same thing. We see the other side of it. Great looking structure. And then you have this this water, don't know the exact name, water mill, right? Which powers the mechanism and harvests, of course, the force of the current of water. And you see that this is very interesting. We will see a bit more. You see on the other side of the structure. And here we will see different versions of it. And it's might be a different one. This is here, actually. This is where it's at. So you have the complete version. You have a version with less of those panels. You have a smaller version, even smaller version. And you have basically what looks like a broken version. Half of it is still hanging in there on the ground, but I believe it's actually, would it be this one or no? It would be just a regular one that is set on the ground level. So this is very interesting. Or would it be this one? Or maybe it's this one. But it could totally be one that would be complete, but I strongly believe now it's definitely this one. Yeah, so this one was modeled in a specific way. This one is half, not half, it's 3/4 remaining, and those are full, right? So that's very, very interesting. So this is from the same artist. Those are the prop kits for the machinery, for everything basically inside and around those houses, those structures. So this is very cool. And the same principle for large props or machines, it's basically the same principle as structures. It's broken down in smaller pieces and then assembled. So there you have it. You see those very large piece of gears assembled together, and you have a vor next to it, so you can see how huge they are. And this is really, really cool shot that we can see and appreciate very well. It looks like that a different angle. Very interesting. Here we have the work of Nikolay Bonev, who worked on trim sheets. So during the development of the game, he was responsible for making most of the trim sheets textures used for the props and the architecture assets. So the trim sheets are extremely versatile materials, which are a must for any large production. And here we see specifically case used by for props, right? Those are quite large props, but they are props nonetheless. And even small props can use trim sheets. So there are other videos about trim sheets on this channel, and we will cover more and more. But essentially, we will look at the realized work using the trim sheets. But basically, those are trim sheets. So not to be confused with trims. So trims are those little things, right? The details that are added. In this case, of course, it's with the Norse mythology flavor, but for instance, in Odyssey, all the trims were used with, of course, the Greek style that was used throughout. And here you have, so those would be called trims. Okay, those sections. This is a trim. This is another trim. This is another trim. They're all trims. But the trim sheets are a texture that would be used. It could be used the way you want, but more traditionally, it's used horizontally, and you display those different patterns. Okay, so then you create the model pieces will be unwrapped in such a way that it's going to use this little part. And then you see this, which looks like a chain. Where can we find it? Well, it's actually here. So that's going to be using this little part. And same for, I'm jumping to another trim, right? But this is how it's used. You model your elements. Let's try to find this one here. So you model a trim, right? An asset, a 3D asset, or it can be also flat. It could be just a plane that's just running around the structure. And then where can we find this pattern? I guess it should be this one. Let me take a look at it. It's this one. Where is it? I think it's this one, right? As opposed to, you see this very large intertwining structure. That would be, it's kind of a game to find it. Is it here? Not quite. Is it this? It's this one that is going on right here, right? So you have one texture, one trim sheet, and you use it on tons of assets, right? And one asset can be using, well, ideally you wouldn't want to use like 3, 4, 5 different trim sheets, but it is possible. And since it's an across a kit kind of thing, right? You might have, I don't know, let's say a 100 pieces. And for this kit of assets, you're using, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say you're using 10 different trim sheets. Well, it's not recommended that for any given pieces you would use 10 different ones. Like you have the tileable texture, which is the bricks, the stones, right? And then you have one, you have to be methodical about it, right? So you know that for this kit you might use a complete number, like a total number of 2 different trim sheets, or 3 or 4, and that would be perfectly acceptable. Because even if you would think that, oh, but that's kind of 2 or 3 materials for this piece, yeah, but they're part of the same kit. And like I mentioned earlier, it could be 100 pieces, and you would be using 2 different trim sheets on top of a tileable material. So once you have instantiated everything, it doesn't cost that much, and the draw calls are very reasonable, right? So this is super interesting, and this is a must technique to learn for 3D artists, environment artists. It can be used on anything, on props. It's mainly used in environments, of course. Props can be large props, could be small props. It can be used on absolutely anything, from furniture to small decorative props. In this context, it's really to add all the the flavors of the style of the architecture, and it is used abundantly, like everywhere, right? And you can see those. So that would be the tileable base material, and those would be the very nice trims. And those would be additional tileable materials, right, that were used throughout different kits. So in this video, we've seen and we've spent time looking at modularity, modular building kits, and trim sheets. And if you are interested in those topics, I have many other videos on different video games featuring these techniques. So the more you learn, the more you see, the better you are at being able to identify when you play a game, right? And then when you plan working on your next project, you're a bit more experienced, and you're a little bit, it's going to be a little bit easier for you to figure out how to approach your next environment. So please take a look at the other videos, and thank you very much for watching.